Well, everyone, anybody who's following the On Stage podcast, if you go way back to the beginning, the third episode is JACRE. And here we have JACRE again after a couple of years, 3 years, back on the
Yeah,
platform
hello,
again.
Chris.
Hello, good morning. Um, Julian Ransom, who's known as JACRE, uh, is a talented, I say. He's got
Oh,
26 songs, 26 singles out, and his last one is this year was just came out with Brighter on the Edge, which was a beautiful, beautiful song. Um,
thank you.
so he's a talented British singer-songwriter, has carved out a unique space in the music world. He's drawing from his initials JKR, his moniker Jaker, pronounced Jaker, represents both a fresh start and a tribute to his artistic identity. With roots in the late 80s and 90s music scene, Julian's career spans decades of writing, performing, and even producing three full musicals. And at the end, what we'll do when this episode becomes live, we will lead it to his first episode. You can get more of Jaker if you want. So your career spanned decades of writing, performing, even producing three full musicals. I want to talk about that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
after a long hiatus to focus on his business ventures, Julian reignited his creative spark in 2019, stepping back into the spotlight as prolific artist, releasing singles every 5 to 7 weeks. I don't know if you still do that.
Uh, that was the plan, but I'm sure we'll talk about why that quite
Yeah.
didn't quite why
Yeah.
that didn't quite happen.
And
Yeah,
and your songs are in different diverse styles, but today Jaker's music, which blends folk, pop, rock, and indie influences, is made even more extraordinary through collaboration with producers and artists who share his passion for creativity. So he's got 26 songs. His last one's Brighter on the Edge of the we'll list there. Just Hold On, Not Falling, which is another great tune.
oh,
If
thank
You
you.
See Her, which is wow, smack dab. And
Yeah, a bit
another good
theatrical,
one,
that one.
yep. And another good
Yeah,
one you did with Only Half the World, which is featuring Australian singer-songwriter Amy Lyons.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. God, that was a while ago now.
yeah. Perfect
Mm,
State is another good one, in the way that um,
the way
love
that love
is.
is.
Now, Amy
Yeah.
Lyons would be interesting to have on my platform. Maybe we'll reach out later.
Oh, I'm
But
sure she'd love to.
but Julian, so uh, can you reiterate for people who don't know who you are? Um, can you go back to the beginning of whatever made you want to get into music and what brings you here?
Yeah, well, I've always been musical right from an early age, and I'm going to go on an immediate digression. So the funny thing is, I was actually adopted at birth, and I was brought up in a properly, completely non-musical family. So I mean, actually, to be fair, my dad could play piano, but kind of didn't, and my dad listened to music a fair bit. But my mum really, really, really didn't particularly like music, and that that there really wasn't much music around the house. And yet, I was really musical, and I taught myself to play the piano, and I started writing music, and so it clearly came through in the genes. And it's actually only in 2019, which is actually what re-triggered this kind of this new phase off for me, that I actually met my birth mother for the first time in 2019, and found out that she was a musician. And my birth father, who unfortunately died before I got in touch, he was actually a touring jazz and professional jazz and classical piano pianist.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was clearly in the genes. So yes, it had been with me from a young age, and initially my only outlet for it, I mean, apart from sitting kind of making stuff up on the piano, was actually being in church choir, and that was really the only opportunity I had to sing, until I went away to uni and discovered musical theatre. And so, of course, being me, I wasn't content with just being in musical theatre. I decided I was going to write it as well, which is where I ended up writing and staging three full musicals. First one at uni with a friend, and then a couple later on once I left university. Um, And yeah, but on top of that, really, I always wanted to write and record my own stuff. Not really musical theatre so much. I mean, I mean, I probably shouldn't say it, but I kind of had a bit of a natural knack for writing musical theatre. That kind of dramatic, theatrical stuff is kind of right in my wheelhouse. But I always really wanted to do more pop and mainstream kind of stuff. Um, but the challenge that I had was that I've always been asthmatic, badly asthmatic since quite a
Mm.
young age. It's actually pretty well under control these days. But back then in the 80s and the 90s, in order to get anywhere in the pop scene, you had to work the pubs and clubs, and I couldn't. They were all full of smoke. I just couldn't. I couldn't do pubs and clubs because it would trigger my asthma, and therefore the whole thing was just closed off to me. Um, and in fact, the one chance I did have was when it just so happened the record producer attended one of the stage shows I was doing, and actually offered me a record contract. And would you believe I lost his business card? And I
Oh
didn't know who
no.
he was. I couldn't remember his name, and it was pre-internet, so I couldn't look him up. And that was my early chance gone.
Oh
Um,
no.
and I kind of carried on doing that kind of stuff and touring theatrically, but my writing tailed off. The musical writing musical theatre is incredibly punishing. I mean, the last musical that I wrote, I think I spent 18 months, 2 years. I mean, full
Wow.
time, pretty much writing that, and then it was on for a week, and then it was gone. And it's just not sustainable unless you have some kind of big West End hit. And so I didn't really do much. Um, and then I contracted some lung health problems,
Mm.
and that kind of put paid to me performing live, unfortunately, because I just couldn't really rely on my lung health being good enough on any particular day for me to be able to do it. And I ended up having to cancel three kind of big concerts on the trot, and I thought, it's
Mm.
just not fair on anybody. So I just stopped doing it really until 2019. I met my birth mother, and I actually didn't really have any recordings of anything that I'd done, not proper recordings of anything I'd done. I thought, you know what, I'm going to take. I'm going to finish one of the songs I started writing all this time ago, and I'm going to take it to a record producer, and I'm going to get it recorded. And these days, I can put it out on streaming. I don't have to do the pubs and the clubs. I can just go out on streaming. And really, that first one went out, and I kind of got the bug and just carried on from there. So that's kind of how I restarted in 2019, releasing my first single in, I think it was March 2020. Yeah.
Do you remember the name of that first song?
That first song was With You, and it's actually still to this day my most popular single. Um, and although actually that wasn't the original one that I wanted to get, it wasn't one that I took to the producer first to get produced. The first one was actually No More Summertime, which actually came out, I think, a couple of years later with a different producer. But With You was one that I had mostly written about 15 years earlier, that I finished off and brushed off, and then got that produced. Yeah, With You. So there we go.
No, that's amazing because then you have Waiting to Ask You, and then in 2022 was Ghost. And my favorite was Coventry Carol. Um,
Oh yeah.
you did a whole bunch of like Only Love Could Be So Blind, like
Yes, that was
um,
that was a recent one. I kind of had a reboot recently, so I ended up, um, unfortunately, I've got, so I end up going through these work crises, which is so annoying that I ended up having to take 18 months off. So I was putting out singles really regularly, but about, I think, as you said, every 5 to 7 weeks, from that first single in March 2020, and I was putting that really, really regularly until Liz Truss, who I'm sure everybody knows the name of, managed to crash the UK economy and put my work into crisis, and I ended up basically having to work pretty much all hours, in order to kind of keep ourselves going, and it meant I had to take 18 months off completely. So I didn't release anything for 18 months. I ended up off socials. I find it very hard to kind of switch hats if I'm in if I'm in work mode, I find it very hard to switch to music
Yeah.
mode, and vice versa. And so, and socials are kind of part of that. So unfortunately, I ended up taking 18 months off. During that 18 months, I decided that I was going to move away somewhat from my kind of theatrical output. So up until then, I'd kind of really embraced my musical theatre style performance, which is still something that I like doing. But equally, I felt that it kind of limited my audience somewhat, because there are a lot of people out there who are quite allergic to theatrical style vocals. And so I thought it'd be interesting during that 18 months to see if I could transition myself to basically doing the same thing, but making the vocals more modern and more approachable to a wider audience. And that was, and so kind of during that 18 months, on the odd times when I had a bit of time here and there, I was working out what was it that made me sound theatrical and turned some people off my music, that I could address. So, and I did that, which is then I came back early last year with my first single, which was "Don't Ask Me Why," um, which was something that I'd actually written 2 years earlier,
Mm.
with a platinum selling a platinum selling songwriter, Mickey Shiloh, who I co-wrote it with, and I just hadn't got round to putting it out. So finally got that out, and then, would you believe it? So 18 months off, got one single out. I was then out actually. We were in this beautiful part of the UK, Devon, and we have amazing walks around here. And I tend to write while walking. So these days I tend to just go out and just out in the fresh. There's nobody around. I mean, I can walk for 2 hours and not see anybody at all. It's pretty amazing. And so I'm free to just kind of, I walk and I sing and I just kind of make stuff up. And I was out walking, writing a song called Not Falling, which I'd just written the first half of the chorus. Would you believe it? I fell and broke my leg.
Mm.
And so this was last March, just after I'd released Don't Ask Me Why. And I fell, broke my leg, ended up having to be airlifted out by a helicopter, ended up in hospital, flat on my back for 3 months. Not in hospital for 3 months, I was in hospital for 2-3 weeks. Flat on my back for 3 months. So, of course, I had to have another break. Um, then I managed to get a whole host of other singles out, and then I had another work crisis, and I ended up taking another 5 months off. And it is so frustrating. I love doing my music. I love the output. I was just getting momentum up again, and I had to take time off. So at the moment, I'm actually trying to find ways of reducing my workload and reducing the impact of these crises when they happen, so that I can actually just get back to regularly putting music out again. Because I want to do that. I want to get a single out basically every 6 to 8 weeks. That's my current goal. And I actually have 6 singles that are ready for me to record vocals. They're all produced. They just need me to record the vocals to. Then they're ready to go out. And I've got, I think, another 8 tracks that are waiting to go into production. So, you know, I've been busy. I just can't do the final bit of recording the vocals at the moment and getting them over the line.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. You're pretty amazing yourself. You got enough singles there, 26 or more. You can do like a greatest hits album or something. The best,
Yeah, well,
best of
the funny
JACRE.
Well, the funny thing is that actually, because I'm trying to move away from my earlier sound, I mean, actually, what I'm trying to work towards is the original plan was, in fact, I was supposed to be releasing an album in May or June, but of course, with just having taken 5 months off, I am somewhat behind on that. So that's clearly now not going to happen. But um, these 6 singles that are currently in production, they will make up, along with some of the more recent ones that I've put out, they will make up an album that will go out, and they will all be with my modern sound and my new producer. So I have a new producer as well, this amazing guy, Dominic Romano, who's an incredible artist in his own right. Unfortunately, he's got health issues. He's got some throat issues, which means he can't sing at the moment. So he's kind of leaning into his production. But he's an amazing producer, mainly in the indie folk area. But I keep on throwing all these different genres at him, which every time I write something, it tends to come out as something slightly different. So I keep throwing this stuff at him, and he's amazing. Just keeps on bringing the goods with everything I throw at him. So this new album will be, the intention is that album kind of marks my stamp, right? This is who I am now. Um, and I've thought about it. I might collect some of my earlier stuff into an album, but what I don't want to do, I don't really want to put that out and then make that what I'm about. I really am about the new stuff. Equally, what I might do re-records of some of my earlier stuff and put those out. So things like With You and Always Here and Ghost in the Rain and some of my kind of
Hmm.
more popular earlier singles. I might I've actually already re-recorded With You. I've got a modern version of With You which I
Mm.
haven't released. Um, I don't think I've released. I actually can't remember whether I released that or not. I don't think I did. But that's like a modern vocal version of that with less theatrical edge on it. So I might do that, put out an album of retrospectives. The issue being, though, that if I do that, that will take away from me writing new stuff.
Yeah.
And there was a point a few months ago where I was literally writing at least a new song a week, if not two new songs every week, which is why I've ended up with so much stuff in my catalog ready to go, you know?
Yeah. Um, like during the 2020s, we actually had that pandemic, and you wrote some pretty good songs. You wrote like "Always Here," "Ghost in the
Yeah.
Rain," as you mentioned,
Yeah.
and then you had one of your best songs, "Silent Storm." "Turn
Oh, I
It
love
Over" is
songs.
another one, "With You," as
Yeah.
you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did that affect your mental health? Like the pandemic, and then you
Mm,
met your birth mother in 2019, and a pandemic
mm,
happened. What was your
yeah.
relationship like during the pandemic than when you first met her?
Well, there wasn't much of one, to be honest. I mean, we got on really well, but obviously during the pandemic, we couldn't meet. So actually, we met once, and then the pandemic hit, and we didn't actually meet again for really quite some time after. Um, so because we were both vulnerable to COVID for our various different things we've got going
Mhm.
on. So yeah, we didn't. As far as my mental health, actually, the thing is, I work from home anyway, so it didn't really particularly affect me because, yeah, I just continued doing what I'm doing. I mean, equally, I wasn't working. That's part of the reason I was so prolific during that period was that actually our work more or less closed down during for a year during COVID, because our customers were shut down. So therefore,
Mm.
our business was pretty much shut down. So I was kind of just keeping things ticked over. But that's why I was so prolific particularly on social media, and a load of the videos that I was putting out. I was putting the videos out, my YouTube videos. I was making those myself in the main, with some help, but I was mainly doing those myself. And some of those were taking me a week to make
Wow.
from start to finish because there was a lot of work in some of those. Um, and I couldn't do those now. I just haven't got the time. I can't spend an entire week. It was really enjoyable. I mean, it was great. Working in Adobe After Effects and doing all the effects and the green screen work and all the stuff that I was doing was amazing. I really enjoyed it, but I can't now justify spending a whole week on that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, my videos are a bit more basic, if they even exist these days, because it's more important to get the music out for me.
What
Did
was
that answer
your
your question? What was your question? About the mental health. Yeah, so no, it didn't particularly affect me at all. Funny thing is, I actually write quite a lot about mental health, and although I don't really have huge mental health issues myself, it's something that's crossed my path a lot, and I'm very aware of. Um, and so, Always Here in particular was very much a mental health support song. And yeah, Silent Storm. Honestly, I loved the production of Silent Storm. It was amazing. And I've been trying to work with that producer again. That's a guy called Alone Architect. But he himself, unfortunately, has been through a load of issues, which has meant it's been really hard for him to produce for the last few years. And we keep talking about doing something together again. We've kind of made a couple of starts at a couple of bits, but he's just unfortunately not in a place to do production, and he's very unique. He's a very unique creative talent.
mm. Yeah, it's
Mm,
amazing. Yeah, a lot of people had mental health issues during that time of pandemic. We worked from home for 2.5 years,
Mm.
and then I went back in May, I think, of 2022, and you came up with a song back in 2021 called "In the Dark." And I could
Yes.
swear that a year later, when you came out with Perfect State, that was synonymous with to like Perfect State was the sequel to In the Dark. So
Oh,
what
interesting.
I was saying that to many musicians asking when they write their songs, is
Mm.
there some sort of experience behind them? So what was your experience of In the Dark, and what happened during Perfect State?
Let me talk about Perfect State first because I remember this one better. So, Perfect State, funnily enough, I actually wrote before my first single even came out. Um, Perfect State, I was actually at. I went to a. I went to a gig. Oh, and a local gig by somebody whose name I've unfortunately forgot. It's going to come to me at just the wrong point. A very very small local gig, and she sang a song by somebody else who I've completely forgotten what it was. But that song, I actually came out of the gig, and I thought, that's really interesting. I want to write something kind of along those lines, which is a was, and that's what kicked that off. What tends to happen with me a lot of the time is that I will start just singing. I just start singing something random. I say, right, I'm going to write something now, and I just came up with this kind of phrase in my this musical phrase, a melody in my head, and some random words attach themselves to that phrase. Is often what happens with me, um, and so that's what happened with Perfect State. It was literally just some random words attached themselves to it, and then I kind of worked myself. So I made a story up, working outwards from that random line.
Hmm.
I'm trying to even remember now what that was because that was a long time ago that I wrote that one. That was probably January 2020. I think I wrote Perfect State. Um, but it took me quite a long time to finish. I couldn't. Often, what happens is I get a song that I think is quite strong, but I can't find a way to get it past a minute or a minute and a half. And sometimes I then put it on the back shelf for a year, and I come back to it with fresh ears and go, yeah, that's what I need to do to now make this work. So that was Perfect State. In the Dark came about because I was on a songwriting camp. Actually, there's a virtual record label out there called Hard Drive,
Really?
which is actually where I met Mickey Shiloh, the
Hmm.
songwriter I was talking about earlier. She's actually the CEO of Hard Drive, and we actually ended up starting writing a few songs together. Um, and In the Dark was a song I actually ended up writing at that songwriting camp with somebody else who was on the um, with another artist who was on the camp, and we basically started writing that together. And then I took it away and finished structuring it, and we recorded it and put that out. Yeah, it's another one. I love that. I love the production on that, which again was from the production on that one was from a completely different guy who I haven't got in front of me, and I've unfortunately forgotten his name off the top of my head.
Hmm.
But he did a lovely job on that.
Yeah, that was a great song. Wow, like you're so proficient, like all your songs, and so with the song that In the Dark, what was the song process like? Like, how did you start it?
I think I remember I wrote some piano that I then wrote the start of that. So I wrote kind of the first verse and some the piano that went with it. Um, and then I passed it over to I'm so sorry, I've forgotten the name. Have you got it in front of you? What's the name of the artist that I did that with? In the Dark with.
Yeah, I don't have it with me here actually.
No, I don't. I'll tell you. I will look it up. But I then passed it over to her, and she then wrote a portion, and that came back to me, and I then kind of wrote the next bit, and then I kind of then filled out the rest of the structure. Yeah, that's how that's how that one worked. Um, yeah, those are funny ones. I've done a few like that, a few of those kind of collabs. You mentioned um, Half the World, Only Half the World.
Yep, that's with that was with Amy Lyons.
Amy
Yep.
Lyons, yeah, that was another one that we did in the same way. So basically, I started it off. I wrote a piano riff and wrote a vocal over it, and then passed it over to her to write the next bit. And then I think I wrote the chorus, and then we kind of went backwards and forwards between us until that one was done.
How did you
Yeah,
manage to bring her into your own little musical world there?
that was because we were both on a course together, a music marketing course. Um, I'm having one of those days. I'm having a senior day today. I think we were briefly chatting before the podcast. I said we both recently turned 60 years old, and now I can't remember. Like, honestly, it's mad. My memory for names are just like just gone. But we were Adam Ivy. That's it. We were on a music marketing course with YouTube marketer Adam Ivy. And this was kind of for people mainly who were actually starting off. And Amy and I were both starting off, and we were both on the course. Um, and so we were kind of in a chat, and the various people in the course, we decided to try and work together. And Amy is one who that's one that stuck, where we actually did something together and managed to get a single out of it. But yeah, that was really good. That was really cool. And that music marketing course really helped in those kind of early days of because believe it, you wouldn't believe it with kind of looking at me now and how I am on camera, on the music videos and stuff. But I was really wary of putting myself on camera back then.
Wow.
Despite having been a professional actor and singer back in the day, it was a long time ago. And I thought, nobody wants to see this wrinkly 53-year-old or whatever I was, 55-year-old on screen. But turns out I was wrong. So, and I quite quickly got over my nerves. But Adam was really good at kind of getting me through that process, and that whole thing was good. Yeah, that's where Amy came from.
Well, that's great that you have people on your corner and on your side to help you out. Um, Especially this one that helps you write music. John, what's his name? John.
Which John? Lots of Johns. There's my old producer John McLucas. There's
Yeah, that's it. John McLucas. Yeah.
John McLucas. Yeah. Oh, John was great. Yeah, we parted ways unfortunately when I had my 18-month break.
Oh, really?
He
That's
kind
too
of
bad.
moved on. Yeah, it was. But these things happen, and he decided he needed to be more. When we started working together again, it was quite early in his production career, and he was kind of taking on people from all kinds of different areas and genres, and really he decided he actually needed to concentrate on his main core, which was proper modern young pop. And there's one thing I'm not, it's young pop. I'm doing pop, really not young stuff. So yeah, so he decided he needed to focus on that. And I've landed on my feet because I mean, wow,
Yeah.
my new producer Dominic Romano is absolutely amazing. You know.
The song I really liked is When the Lights Go Out. Now, you wrote that in
Mm.
2022 and released it. So, what lights went out in your life, in your
Do you
job?
know that was another one where I literally just came up with a random line that just
Oh,
happened to fit the melody, and I just wrote the song outwards from it. It was just that.
nice.
uh, Yeah, it's funny. A lot of my songs are like that. Not all of them, actually. So some of my songs are more rooted in actual kind of my
Mhm.
actual experience, or in actual stuff. So especially actually, funny enough, my more recent stuff, my earlier work tended to be very much fictionalized. Sometimes fictionalized versions of what was going on. When the Lights Go Out really was purely just a story. It had no basis in anything that was going on. But some of my more recent ones have done. So Only Love Could Be So Blind was about a relationship I had where, it turned out that she had basically lied to me about practically everything right
Oh,
from the start. And actually, funny enough, Brighter on the Edge is actually about kind of the end of that relationship.
yeah.
But all of these are kind of turned up to 11 and fictionalized and made more interesting for the purposes of the drama and the story. And obviously, in the case of Brighter on the Edge, made more amusing than it actually was. Um, so kind of trying to find the brighter side of it, and Just Hold On actually. Just Hold On is an interesting one.
Hmm.
So that one was actually inspired by a fan, and so a fan reached out to me and asked if I could write her a song. And I said, "Well, I'm happy writing you a song, but I need some kind of I need to know a bit about you." And she emailed me this amazing, quite harrowing story of her life. I'm not going to go into it too much because I think it's kind of out there who it is, and it's not fair me talking about it in too much detail. But she had really really struggled through her life for various reasons. It's a really beautiful woman who had a horrendous time when she was young, and then older with various relationships, and really had a breakdown in 2020. And the thing that got her through it was my mental health support song, Always Here, which she basically said that's the song that got her through her breakdown, that really
Wow.
meant that she survived, which was pretty incredible. And actually,
Wow.
that's what Just Hold On is about. Just Hold On is me talking to both the younger and the older version of her. It will be brighter tomorrow. You'll stand taller than today. And though you've no strength to fight, though the hurt fills your eyes, I promise it will be brighter tomorrow. Just hold on till the days when the light outshines the darkness. Just hold on. And
Mm.
the lyrics I hope are actually quite subtle. If you listen to it with that in mind, you will hear it. You will hear the allusions to, it's all about how you're really struggling at the moment, but just hold on. Things will get better. And there are allusions to my songs as well. So I actually mention Always Here, and I mention Ghost in the Rain in there. And so there's a lyric in there which is that the fact that she was listening to Always Here pretty much on repeat, and the fact it is a mental health song, it's quite a sad but
Mm.
ultimately empowering song. And so one of the lyrics is, "I'm always here and I'm always on, but you will move on to a brighter song, I promise." And so, which is about, you're not always going to be in the need for that kind of song. You can move on to something happier. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's terrible. My friend Armando and I, we have a friend named Lisa, and I hung out with her for quite a while, and we moved her into a new apartment. Um, and just suddenly there was an accident in her life, and to the point where she like had a stroke like 3 months ago. So now she's in a
Oh
nursing home.
man.
We had to move her in the apartment and out of the apartment within 7 months because she
Right.
could no longer
Wow.
go back. I know, and she's my age, our age. But
Yeah. Yeah. You're younger than me. You're 3 months younger than me. You're a mere.
yeah, when you were talking about that relationship that you had where she was practically lying to you, may I ask you, Julian, if "Only Love
Mm.
Could Be So Blind" was written during that time?
No, it wasn't. No, it was written much, much
Okay.
later. So I wrote Only Love Could Be So Blind. I wrote just before I wrote Not Falling. So because often these songs are written a long time before they come out, but in this case, I think I wrote it January last year. It was actually the first song that I wrote when I came back from my break, um, and it was kind of inspired. It was inspired partly by being out and walking in nature, which is all the nature metaphors come about. But I thought, come on, it can't
Mhm.
just be about walking out in nature. Let's make it about something more interesting. So I thought, well, what if I'm out and I'm looking at nature, but actually in everything I see there is something subtly wrong? And so there's this thing about, there's a gap on the horizon where the where the sky should be, or something. I lose the exact lyric, but there's a lot of this, and there's a silence where the birds should be, and so on. So everything I'm looking at, there's something subtle, and the song is about working out why everything seems wrong, and the reason everything seems wrong is because somebody is lying to me. And
Hmm.
that's where that, so it started with some quite simple lyrics, and then they actually thought, no, it needs to be more interesting. And I kind of made it up, and they thought, oh no, actually, this is quite an interesting way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, your music's so inspirational, especially to that young lady that you spoke to. And so your mom now, your adoptive mom,
My
your
birth mother.
biological
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
Um, when you showed her that song, like, what was the reaction to the fact that, oh wow, you're a musician as well?
She loved
Was
the
any
fact, she
trepidation with
loved,
her meeting you?
oh, lots. Yeah. We were both a bag of nerves when we first
Mm.
met. Um, so there are several things here. So the first thing is that when we first spoke, we spoke on the phone. Um, and I think there was this immediate connection that bizarrely I had never felt before. Right, so you've got to
Mm.
bear in mind at this stage, I had never had any interaction with anybody to whom I was biologically related, right, ever in my life.
Hmm.
And so of course, when I, well, no, of course there was with my children, but that's different. But in terms of adults, family, never had any conversations. And when
Wow.
I first spoke to her, there was this immediate connection, something to do with the way that we both spoke. And I actually immediately went away and I actually wrote a poem about it. I wrote about how, about this kind of the cadence, about how the cadence of our speech somehow just automatically worked together. It was this really, like, the hairs went up on the back of my neck. It was really, really strange. So that was first, and actually, I'll come back to the second part of your question in a minute. But I recently had, I then actually discovered that I actually had a birth grandmother, would you believe, still alive, who was 99 years old. This is on
Wow.
my father. This is on my father's side. So my father unfortunately died. But when I was trying to kind of track down where he was, I kind of made some. I decided I was going to make some random phone calls in an area where my birth mother had told me that my birth father used to live, like, long time ago. We're talking about in the 1960s here. And so I thought, you know what? There's somebody there with the right surname. There are three people there with the right surname. I'm just going to call them and just say, do you know where? Are you related to this guy who was my father? Do you know where he moved to? So I picked up the phone. I rang this first person, and who answered? But my birth grandmother on the very first call I made,
Wow.
and we were both so shell shocked. I mean, she ended up putting the phone down on me, and then she rang me back about 15 minutes ago, 15 minutes later, and we ended up having a good chat. I ended up going up and meeting her. Unfortunately, she passed away last year at
Oh,
the grand old age of 103.
wow.
And the point of this story was, then I went and met the rest of my kind of family, my biological family up in Scotland on my father's side for the first time,
Nice.
all of them at her funeral. I mean, can you imagine the nerves? I'd never met any of them before, including my half brother, who I had actually spoken to. I was so nervous. But
Wow.
again, it was like coming home. It's this really strange thing. It's very hard to describe, but it's just like I was with my people, you know? It's it's very strange. Back to the music part of the question. She was really, really pleased that I did my music, but unfortunately, she doesn't really like it. She kind of appreciates it, but she
Wow.
doesn't really get on with it. And I think this is, I must actually persuade her to listen to some of my more recent stuff, because the trouble is she really can't stand cheesy kind of love songs, which is what a lot of she would regard a lot of my earlier stuff as. And actually, funny enough, the musical theatre kind of vibes in my stuff is something she just really doesn't get along with at all. And
Oh.
so I think she listened to a couple and thought, right, that's enough of that. Would you believe it? There we go.
Aw, that's too bad. Means you don't have a connection musically as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So do you think your music has evolved since the last time you and I spoke was like 2021, of course. Do you
Mm,
think your music has evolved, like, to the point where
yeah.
if you listen to a JACRE song today and a JACRE song 2019 that you don't think they were the same person?
Some of them, actually, yeah. There are some that there's been a big shift in the way that I write and the way that I create. Um, Again, since my 18-month break, and I made this conscious effort in order to move away from the more theatrical way of
Mm,
singing, and that's had some kind of unexpected side effects. And so there are a couple of things in there that what I worked out, and one of them is that so when you're on stage, right, and you are singing to an audience, the audience has to hear every word. The
mhm,
audience has to understand every word, and so you pronounce things incredibly strongly, right? And so every word has to, every consonant is brought out in an extremely careful way, and so that's how you sing on stage, and that's actually what I was doing in the main in my singing. That's one of the things that marks out kind of musical theatre vocalization versus more kind of pop vocalizations. And I had producers say to me, "Just relax. You're so uptight when you sing. Just relax." I said, "I am relaxed. I don't know what you mean." And they didn't know what they meant either, but they just knew I didn't sound relaxed to them. And it turns out that it's two things. It's firstly overpronouncing everything. So when pop singers sing, they
mhm,
sing as they speak. Now, I mean, I actually pronounce quite strongly when I speak as well, but most people, when they speak, would speak like this, and so they don't really put many consonants in. You know, it's all a bit of a flow. And so when they sing, they do exactly the same thing. It all just kind of flows out, and then the consonants don't really appear. And so that's how people sing pop. Um, and the other thing that they don't do so much as in theatre, again, when you're on stage, you are acting a part, and so when there are emotions, you are acting the part of that character, right? As if you are actually that person. Whereas in when you emote in pop singing, you don't do that. You're not the person. You can
mm.
bring out emotions, but you're not acting it, right? There's a very subtle difference that kind of comes across. And so it's those two things that I've really worked on. So the upshot of that is I'm suddenly not pronouncing all of my words extremely carefully,
Mm,
which actually means that all of a sudden my singing style, my writing style, I discovered I was writing more upbeat,
mm,
faster, more up tempo stuff, which I'd never been able to sing before because my consonants were always so clipped, I couldn't get them out. And I figured I just wasn't suited to singing more up tempo, kind of modern stuff. Turns out it was just my pronunciation that was holding me back. And as soon as I'd relaxed into this more modern pop way of singing, I started writing the more upbeat numbers like "Not Falling" and "Brighter on the Edge." You know,
mm,
I couldn't have done those a couple of years ago. The other big thing that's happened is since working with Dominic,
mm.
um, and actually having some feedback from one of the other things I do is I pitch my music for TV and film inclusion, which I haven't done anything yet. I've got quite close. I'm still shortlisted actually for one of my
Nice,
songs. Is short. Not Falling is still shortlisted for a major Hollywood movie at the moment.
nice.
Um, I reckon it's who knows. It's up against a lot of other stuff, so you know the chance of it happening
Good for
fairly
you.
low. If it happens, it'd be amazing, and it's
Yeah.
great to get to that point. So it's at the point where the director's heard it, and it's in in this director's list of short list of songs to be included. Anyway, but I speak to kind of TV and film music supervisors quite a lot, and one of the things that they were saying is these piano intros that you do, you know, they're lovely, but they're really dated, and they really don't fit the kind of modern vibe that you're going for. Um, that paired with my working with Dominic Romano, who is more of a guitar-based producer. Um, and so I have got piano in some of the tracks, but equally in some of the tracks we've taken all of my piano out and replaced it all with guitar. And in some of them, I've often ended up I'm just out no, sorry, two things here. So the first thing is I used to write by generally writing something on piano first and then writing a vocal over the top of it. And recently, since we moved here to Devon, where all these beautiful walks around, I've tended to just go out walking and actually writing, just singing while walking.
Oh,
And so I haven't actually got an accompaniment to be singing to. And then I'm coming back and kind of just putting some kind of any old piano in the background just in order to make it good enough to send to the producer and to make it flow. And so those two things have really massively affected how I'm writing, um, and the kind of thing that I'm writing. And I think they're making it more organic and all again a little bit more modern, really. I'm not hampered because what you write to the kind of stuff that you write to a piano backing is very different to the kind of stuff that you write to a a guitar backing.
Hmm.
They're just naturally quite different things. And at the moment, I'm really enjoying the guitar based stuff. Um, and in fact, on I've got several songs on the go at the moment where actually I've asked. So again, Dominic, my producer, to actually put me together just some guitar backing, just to make something up, just some generic kind of guitar backing, which I've then taken out on my walks and going on in my headphones, and I'm actually then writing some melodies to that because he's got a kind of a slightly different melodic style than I have in the way that his chords move, and it kind of gets me out of my comfort zone and gets me into writing something slightly different. And in fact, um, probably my next song. Again, I've got 6 in mid-production, but I think probably the next one I'm going to do is something called Holy, and that was written to a backing of Dominic's. So
Mm.
Dominic wrote the backing first, um, and then I wrote over the top of it, and I then actually chopped and changed the backing around, and then he's kind of then reworked his backing to then work with the rest of the song. But yeah, that's one that's worked that way, and I'm really really pleased with Holy. I think it's going to be really lovely. So yeah, so several things really changing the way that I write quite substantially.
So, does your religious background, your belief in God, have something to affect your songwriting? For instance, the
No,
song "Holy." That's sort of like one of the very first sort of Christian-inspired songs that you're writing.
yeah, it's not though. It's actually about um, the lyrics are um, let's walk among the sacred places of no, let's walk among the holy places of sacred green and blue.
Mm.
Um, and so it's actually about, to me, how nature and the natural world is the holy place and the sacred place for me. And it talks about, I don't, we've no need for, I don't need whispered verses, just time alone with
Mm.
you. And it's about getting away from screens and social media and all the angry people on there, and just stepping out into nature and just breathing and being in nature. Because I'm not a religious person. I had a religious background because I was in a religious family, and that was the only outlet for my singing. So, and I used to read a lesson twice every Sunday, because I was good at standing up there and projecting and just kind of
Mm.
reading and making it all sound real. But it didn't ever go beyond that for me. No, I don't have a religious, but it's kind of a funny thing because I don't talk about it much because I'm aware that a lot of my followers are. Um, I have a lot of followers who are very religious indeed, and so I don't push that down anybody's throat, you know. Um, but yes, and so this one, Holy, I'm not anti-religious in it. But I am just saying that, for me and in this moment, this is my holy place. This is my sacred place. This beautiful, beautiful countryside in which I live. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing that one or watching any music video you might have on that one. Interested in
Mm.
knowing what the concept would be. When you're writing all these songs, and it's fantastic. Is there any instrument that you think like what would be your least favorite instrument included in your songs that you don't want in any of your songs?
Oh wow. That's interesting. I don't really have one, to be honest. The thing is, right, I'm very open as far as instrumentation and production is concerned. I'm very, very open to whatever comes out. Which is why I have such a wide range of sounds. At the moment, I'm so even with Dominic, I'm ranging from indie folk. So like Just Hold On is really pure indie folk. We're going kind of retro indie pop rock with Brighter on the Edge. There's some indie pop going on with Not Falling. But then we've got kind of very much electronic inspired with Silent Storm,
Mm.
orchestral with Perfect State. Um, there's a wide range of stuff, even dance. There's a house track which was um, if the, God, I can think of the song. I
Oh,
can't think of the title. It's one I did with a Norwegian producer, a young Norwegian producer called Chris. Um, if the world if the world allows me, that's it. That which was written during COVID, and that was a house track, which I really love doing. So I'm open to pretty much everything. Um, yeah, I don't mind. I'm It'd be interesting if ever there's an instrument on a track. So far, there's never been an instrument on a track where I've gone, nah, no, 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 no. I don't like that. I'm pretty open to anything really,
yeah, I noticed
including,
that.
of course, in Brighter
Yeah,
on the Edge, there was a theremin, which was great, which wasn't my idea. That was Dominic's idea. To put that kind of whimsical theremin edge on it was great.
yeah, I know I could be coming to you and complaining if I ever hear didgeridoo in one of them.
Didgeridoo. I think that's unlikely, if we're honest. But I'll tell you what, I will take it as a challenge.
Well, Julian, you sound so passionate. That's amazing. Well, what is it about music makes you so passionate? Like, um, is there any parts of being a musician that has your least favorite or your most favorite?
It's the social media aspect of it is my
Mm,
is my least favorite. And actually, don't get me wrong, I like interacting with people on social media, but it's the grind of having to produce the constant stream of short form videos that you kind of have to do these. I mean, you don't have to, but if you want to stand any chance of your stuff getting heard, you have to do it. And I did try. I tried really hard for 2 3 months to actually put out. I was putting out a short form video every single day,
mm,
um, and that was punishing. I've decided to row back on that. It's what you kind of have to do if you want to have the absolute best chance of kicking off. But I'm going to do probably 2 or 3 a week. I think that is probably more achievable, which I'll try to do. That's my least favorite bit, and it's not really a part of the traditional music process. Um, but no, the rest of it, I love the writing. I've always just it's just this weird ability to just be able to just pluck a melody out of the air, um, and then also to actually then structure it, not just to have a standalone melody, but then structure that into the song. It's quite an amazing feeling. You're a songwriter too, right? And so,
um,
um,
I
you,
actually have 4 songs I wrote 20, 30 years ago, and I want to get them released, produced. I don't know what to
yeah.
do. They're just on Foolscap. Yes, Foolscap on with
Well, we
pen.
should talk about it.
Foolscap.
We
Yeah,
should
we
talk
should.
about it. Yeah, yeah, but because it's a pretty easy process, to be honest. I mean, it's not necessarily cheap, but it's not a hard process to go through. I think you'd find it really rewarding. So I love the writing. I love writing lyrics. In the main I work really hard on my lyrics, so my lyrics have to fit really well, and I prefer the lyrics to be meaningful and yet not too pointed. I don't like them to be too obvious. I don't always achieve that. I've had the occasional song go out where actually I've rushed the lyrics a bit, but in the main, I work really hard on my lyrics, and I really love doing that. Really love doing that too. It's a form of poetry, and it's actually a form of poetry that is it's a constrained form of poetry, which I really enjoy. The that having that constraint where it has to fit the melody, and the syllables have actually got to fit in with the flow of the melody,
Hmm.
the cadence, all that. I really love that. And then the production side of it is an absolute joy as well. You send the song off, and then
Wow.
you wait, and the producer comes back with something that's because I generally say to my producers, do whatever you think. I'm not going to give you a guide for this. I want to know what you hear in the track. I give them as bare a bones um, version of it as I can do. There's often a piano with it, but I usually say, you know what, the piano is frankly just throwaway. Some of them it isn't. Some of them is like there are some piano lines there that I want to make it through because they're core, because the melody works with the piano or moves against the piano in very specific ways. So if you see her, actually, the piano in "If You See Her," that was all me. So that was pure. That was me, plus this amazing string arranger called Harley Eblin, and then Dominic Romano kind of pulled all that together. But yeah, that's one where the piano was really, really crucial. But in a lot of these songs, I say, look, the piano is there just as something for me to sing against to give you the demo. Throw the piano away, do whatever you think. I'm going to be really interested to see what you come up with. And that's a joy, and I enjoy the vocal recording, and then just all of it is just a um, it's it's just a kind of a joyful process, really.
Do you have any? Who would be your? Who would be the best one to collaborate with? Who's your dream collaborator? Who would you like? Like,
Oh man, yeah. I mean, there are loads of great artists out there. I'd love to collaborate. I mean, I'm actually doing a collab with. I
oh,
should have recorded. I should have recorded this in January. There's a song that I wrote called "Towards the Setting Sun," which is actually about
wow.
turning 60. Which I wrote. I'm doing a collab with. I don't know whether you know. Do you know Luna Keller? She's an amazing indie folk artist. Um, Luna Keller, she's quite big in the indie folk scene, but we're doing a collab on that one. So I wrote it, and she's singing that with me. I was supposed to record it in January. Again, unfortunately, work crisis, and then health hit, and I haven't been able to do it yet. But she's very kindly kind of waiting for me. But in terms of big people, who would I like to? Who would I really like to? Oh, there are so many. I would love to sing with Lisa Hannigan. I don't know whether you know Lisa Hannigan. Um, she's an amazing artist in her own right, but she used to work with Damien Rice. You must know Damien Rice. Um,
I believe so. I think that name sounds
yeah,
familiar.
yeah. Damien Rice was really big back in the kind of the when was it?
Is he related to Tim Rice?
No, no, no. He's not. Damien Rice is another kind of folk artist.
Oh.
He was really big in the. I think it was in the early 2000s. But she was the female singer with Damien
Mm.
Rice, and then she launched her own career. She's got the most astounding voice. I would love to record with her. But there are so many artists out there I admire. In lots of different directions. I'm not picky. Any of them, anybody's listening to this, I'll collab with any of you. I'm I'm not choosy.
Oh yeah, like hello, Julian. My name is Paul McCartney. I heard that you're a pretty good songwriter. You want to write something?
Oh yeah, nah, not really, Paul. No, not really my thing. Yeah, of course, Paul McCartney. Oh my God, I mean, Paul McCartney is clearly one of my gods. I love Paul McCartney's writing. You know, and for me, this. I know this is controversial for some people, but for me, he was the heart of the Beatles. For me, and more so, John. They had very. This is going on a slight tangent here. But they have very different writing styles. So, John Lennon's writing style, if you listen to his melodies, they tend to be very much on a line with occasional moves up and down. So it'd sing very much on a line and then go up and down, and it'd do this and then it'd go up and down. Whereas Paul McCartney goes up and down like this.
Yeah.
And I am very much more. So you can generally tell when you listen to the songs who wrote the bulk of it, because if it goes up and down a lot, it's Paul McCartney. If it stays mainly on one bit, it's John Lennon. Both brilliant. But for me, I'm much more the Paul. Do much more of the Paul McCartney kind of stuff. But yeah, I have very wide music tastes, and any amazing person in any genre, I would be happy to work with. I mean, I'd love to work with. I mean, Tom York would be another phenomenal one
Oh
for me
wow,
from
Tom York. Yeah,
Radiohead.
yeah,
Yeah,
Radiohead. Yeah, yeah. Wow, Tom
yeah.
York.
I mean, he was an inspiration, and their style. Particularly some of their modern stuff was very much kind of my touchstone for things like Silent Storm. Although it's not Radiohead at all, but it's more like Portishead, if anything. Portishead, again, astounding. Portishead, I love Portishead. So yes, I would love to work with any of those. I think they're a bit out of my league, to be honest, Chris. But you never know, do you?
Hey, I worked with Taylor Swift as she knocked on my door.
Yeah. I'd I'd put aside I'd put aside my I don't even know where I was going with that sentence, but you know what I mean. I would work with Taylor Swift for sure.
You still, Taylor, you still with Travis Kelsey? I don't know. Just kidding.
Frankly, I'd even sing with Travis Kelsey. I mean, if he offered.
I don't know if he knows music because he's I believe he's the football player that she fell in love with. I don't know if
Yeah, I
he's.
know. That's why it was kind of a joke.
Oh, that's
I'd sing
funny.
with David Beckham. I
I
mean,
get it.
if he offered.
Steve Beckham,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
My mate
okay.
Dave. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Um. Yes. So, so your adoptive mother hasn't reached out and said, "Let's do something together"?
No, because she's not that kind of, and she's not active. Unfortunately,
Oh.
she's not active in music. So she was a bluegrass fiddle player,
Mm.
and and it's, I don't know, the two worlds. It'd be interesting to do something, but it's funny. She moved house about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, and unfortunately, where she is, she doesn't feel that really that she can play because
Oh.
it's too expensive. She's got next door neighbours who are always at home, and it's just not fair for them. She doesn't feel like it's fair for them to be hearing her fiddle playing, which is a real
Mm.
shame. So she's kind of let it slip. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the drop of a hat. I mean, if she came up with something, I would absolutely write vocals to something that she wrote. That'd be amazing. But it's not going to happen, and unfortunately, she's not. Unfortunately, she's not well, and
Mm.
so yeah, it's probably not going to happen. It's a shame.
So I suppose that both, well, since your adoptive mother and your adoptive father, who's now passed, were
Yeah.
musicians. Anybody in your other like your like your half brothers, half sisters, whoever's in your family, were they musically inclined as well?
No, not particularly, actually.
Mm.
My half brother, I think, was put off it. He had a very strange childhood, brought up in this house, which was so full of music, and his his uh, his stepmother was a kind of a musical theatre impresario, funnily enough. So my birth father was this classical and jazz pianist, and then he married this musical theatre impresario, who in I can't remember. I think it was in Aberdeen. Was like the person. She's on Wikipedia. There are pages about her on Wikipedia that she's this amazing force in theatre. At the time, their house was full of musicians and singers and actors all the time. I think to the point where it completely put him off. So as a child, he couldn't move for musicians, and he just didn't want to have anything to do with it. So and as for the rest, I no, the others in my kind of extended family are a bit more um are kind of cousins and so on. And no, I haven't really had that any musical vibe from them. We didn't talk about it much. I mean, again, we met this once at a funeral for a few hours, and most of them just wanted to know about me because I was the new thing. I was the news, and so we spent a lot of time talking about me and not so much time talking about them. But
Yeah,
we were all hoping to get together again, and then hopefully I'll get a bit more, get a bit more lowdown on where they are and whether any of them are musical and so on.
it's amazing, Julian, because I heard lots. I love Long Lock's family, and I love the fact that when sons find their parents, they're also musicians. My father, if he had continued with what he was doing, he would have been an opera singer because he had a great voice.
Right,
I heard his voice,
right.
and I inherited his voice. I sing a lot of opera, Italian opera, German,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and I want to write. Actually, well, maybe we can talk about this. I actually wrote a song for my dad. He's passed now 23 years ago. He passed a year after the 9/11, New York 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Well, that
but
was quite you must have been quite young. That's quite a long time ago.
thanks. I had old parents actually. My mother had
Right.
me when she was 45, so do the
Yeah.
math.
Same for me
Um,
with my adoptive parents were similar ages as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah. And so I inherited his voice, but no one in my family. I thought no one in my family had a voice, and I wasn't saying, "Oh, you're terrible, you're terrible." I was saying, "Okay, well, if but they don't sing until one of my sisters, who's never ever sang a note in front of me, opened up her mouth, and I'm like, "What the it blows me." He said, "What's wrong?" Well, like what? She had a gorgeous voice, but she doesn't want
Wow.
anything to do with singing.
Oh,
But
that's
to
a
each his
shame.
own, you know. But I want
Yeah.
to continue. I want to start. I used to perform at the Living Arts Center down here, which is 20 minutes from here,
Yeah.
and big venues. And I sang "O Holy Night," and I love doing that. Oh, yes. So as I was saying, I wrote a song for my father, and we write it in English. And I want to have it translated in Italian and
Oh,
have that
okay.
Italian version sung by an opera singer.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. I did a little bit of opera back in the day, but not much. I did kind of snippets here and there of opera. So um, yeah, which I quite enjoyed, but it's not really my thing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but I definitely appreciate it in those who can. Yeah, you should definitely do that.
Yeah,
That'd be
I think
great.
I'm going to. Why don't you take your songs, 8 or 9 of your best songs, and
Mm.
wrap a musical around them?
I'll tell you what, I might do that. I might do that when I get a bit older, and I know I'm already 60. And some of the people listening to this are going, "Oh my God, you're ancient. What do you mean a bit older?" But at the moment, while I've still got the time to write and put singles out, and as I say, I should have an album coming out this year and an EP. I've got enough material for an album and an EP, and actually more. I actually, funny enough, stopped writing. I got to the point where I thought there's no point in my writing anymore at the moment because I've got so much music already that's ready to go. What's the point? But so I suppose what I'm saying is, while I am in this kind of productive thing, I kind of want to carry on doing that, because if I were to do that with a musical, I mean, that is going to be 6 months or a year. That's going to take me to do, even if it's just taking existing songs and wrapping them up, because you're probably going to have to change the lyrics, and they're going to have to change structurally, and you've got to work in themes that make them work between each other. Very important to make the song, have the songs be kind of thematically linked in some way, and have the drama work through them. So it's a big undertaking, and I'd definitely be up to doing it later on. Maybe when I've kind of exhausted this current round of recording and releasing. It'd be great to look at. But I think while I've got the voice to actually be kind of performing the stuff, writing and performing the stuff myself, I think I want to do that. Because I just enjoy it so much. No, it'd certainly be it'd be an interesting thing to do. I could see myself getting really tempted and just sliding away and just going and doing it, but then I would just have a pause on the rest of my music for a year, and which I don't want to do. I say I'm not very good at multitasking, so if I did that, I know I would get all consumed by it, and that would be what I did. So, yeah, I think I will leave that for a bit, but it's a good idea. Definitely a good idea. Or
Yeah,
frankly, I I I write stuff so fast. I would write all the songs for a musical. Give me a few months, I would have a musical written anyway, in
wow.
terms of the music. Um, yeah, it's doing all the stuff around it, because when I wrote my previous musicals, um, the third one in particular, which is the one that took me kind of 2 years solid, because I was also doing all the arrangements, and the I was doing all the scoring and arrangements, and there were, I don't know, there were 80 people on stage or something. So I was
Wow.
doing all the chorus arrangements and the orchestral arrangements and all that stuff, and that is punishing. That took a lot of doing. And that's something I wouldn't do. I would pass all
Mm.
that on to somebody who actually knew what they were doing, because it's while it was okay, I know if it had been put in the hands of somebody who really knew their stuff as far as arrangement was concerned, it would have been a bigger thing.
Yeah, you have all these challenges in your life, especially when you were on a hiatus for say 18 months. Do you think you're more of a stronger, more courageous Julian than you were 19 months previously?
Maybe. I mean, I think I'm pretty much the same. I think maybe your experience is different. I think, but once you've got to kind of my age at 60, I think I kind of am who I am. I think one of the big things that I have discovered that's kind of unfolded for me is the realization that I'm probably autistic. I mean, I've never been tested, but I'm very probably autistic. And that kind of, the realization of that unfolds in certain ways, and I think kind of in some ways makes you stronger, because
Yeah.
you kind of understand what's going on in your head. And I understand this mono focus that I tend to get, so when I'm working, I'm going to work, and I'm going to get that thing finished. And it's very hard for me to switch on. A lot of other people, I talk to musicians about it, and they say, yeah, I go and do my job, and then I come home, and then I do my music in the evenings. I just can't do it. I have to do one or the other. And so I can kind of block it out. I can block out, say, right, I'm going to have a couple of days now where I'm going to work on music, and then I will be fully on my music, and that's come partly from that. Understanding what's going on in my head definitely helps a bit. Um, and I think it probably informs my writing a bit as well. Just writing from that kind of perspective has been interesting. But apart from that, no, I don't think so. I think I've been in the same job working from home since 1991.
Wow.
So, um, so there's that, my wife Diana and I have been together for, oh God, I don't know how long we've been together, 15, 16 years now. So,
Nice.
that's very stable. I write a lot about heartbreak and about, things being wrong in relationships, but they're
Mhm.
always either just completely fictional because I've got to write something, or they are about, previous relationships. Um, Though actually, not falling was about a kind of a fictional thing about her, and it's about every morning I wake up with the fear of not falling in love again, not falling for you again. And I don't wake up with that every day, but I thought it was quite an interesting perspective on a long-term relationship, that actually there comes a point of, maybe some people do wake up every day and think, oh my God, what if I'm going to turn over and go, what the hell am I doing with you? And that's kind of where that that's kind of where that song came from. But we're very happy, very stable, and so yeah, I come from a point of great stability at the moment, which is really cool.
And does she like your music?
Oh yes, she does. Yes, she very much likes my music, so that's handy because that would be tricky. She doesn't like all of them equally, so some of them she likes more than others. But no, in the main, and I tend to run them past her. She's not musical at all, hasn't got a musical bone in her body, but she loves music, and she's actually got quite a good ear for what works and what doesn't. So I kind of use her as a canary in the coal mine, that she can go, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound right. What are you doing there? And she's become quite well trained as well to noticing when I get theatrical in my singing, and she's quite good at telling me to stop it. So that's handy too.
You should do a prank on her. You should go like, honey, I'm trying to write this song. What do you think of these lyrics? Get off your butt and make me dinner. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's actually in the next song, Chris. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
that's,
I might do that.
that's
just
funny.
as a just as a prank.
Yeah.
Um, and I did actually write one for her as well recently, which I can't remember whether it's going to be on the album. The producer, it's funny. I write more than actually gets out there, so it's probably every other one that makes it, and that's sometimes not because the song itself doesn't work, but it's because the producer can't find a way into it, if that makes sense. So the producer will say it's lovely. I just can't just I'm not feeling it. I can't feel my way into it. And there's one I wrote that I'm struggling to remember what it's called, which was actually about us when we were out. We were out stargazing. We were actually watching
Mm.
the Perseid shower. And yeah, again, we're very, very lucky here. We've got dark skies. There's hardly anybody near us. So we were out at the top of one of our fields, just kind of sitting out in these layback chairs, just looking out. It's incredibly peaceful. And I wrote a song about that experience and about being with her there, and about how we kind of fell asleep during the process and then woke up. It's an amazingly warm night. And so yeah, so some of it is informed by that, but more often my life is too stable and too boring, so I end up fictionalizing crises that aren't really there. um
That's funny.
yeah, it's the downside to having a stable, happy life. I mean, I have people. I sometimes have to put out disclaimers on. I put out disclaimers on social media when I release a particularly nasty breakup or song or something about something being horrendous in a relationship, and I go, "This is not about me and my wife, okay? I'm sorry." And when she posts them, she says, "It's not me. It's nothing to do with me. It's fictional," just so her friends don't get worried.
Yeah, it's nice to have that encouragement from family, especially like if my wife didn't like my music, I would certainly be like, okay, so you know. But yeah, I've had relationships like that. Even recently, when I told you I reconnected with a relationship in September. But it's sort of like it's kind of nice how things build up. And then also because they're singers themselves and sopranos and have beautiful vibrato
Mm,
voice, then you know they're gonna like your music.
mm.
And so, but currently, yeah, I just want to get back into opera, and I love singing cover songs. I sang a few Bruno Mars songs yesterday.
Oh,
"Talking to the
cool.
Moon" is my favorite. I like to release a cover version of "Talking to the Moon," and I would give anything to release a song of mine, even if it's a cover song on Spotify, or maybe not Spotify, Bandcamp or something. But I'm more of a podcaster, and I kind of get
Yeah.
ideas from a lot of musicians like you, and almost 300 musicians as well. And I want
Mm,
to be a filmmaker as well, and
mm.
it's a lot of stuff I want to do. Even at 60, I want to do some new stuff. You know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what my upcoming song "Towards the Setting Sun" is about. Um, so it's about it's to some extent again it's a kind of an amplified version of what's going on. So I you know I have a friend who unfortunately who's about the same age as me, slightly younger than me, um, but who has a lot of mental health issues, bless him, and he has kind of almost fossilized. You know, he's got himself into this state
Mm.
where he is living in the past and he's all this stuff, and that's what this song is about, and the lyrics are um, um, oh God, I've lost the lyrics. I mean, the core lyric, "The
Well, that's
towards the
what happens to
setting
a
sun."
60-year-old. You lose your mind, right?
You lose your memory. It's horrendous. Funny
Who
if
are
you
you
asked me
again?
5 minutes ago, I would. um, do you know, I've actually thought about renaming my artist name actually to Julian Ransom. Then I might actually remember who I am.
No, but there's
Um,
another one out there though.
There is. He doesn't do very much though, and I have actually talked to him, and he's a nice guy. He's an American rapper. I don't think he's even active. I don't think he's put anything out for years.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, you know, when you're up against somebody who's hardly active or completely inactive, it doesn't really matter. Equally, JACRE's kind of a bit of a brand now, so I will stick with
Yeah, so
it.
like Prince, the
This
artist, formerly Prince, you can call yourself Julian Ransom, formerly JACRE.
the artist formerly known as JACRE. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah. So the core lyric of the song is, "I'm not gonna." Oh God, I can't believe. It's basically I'm going to run towards the setting sun. It's basically I'm not going to. I'm not. We're not going to give up. We're not too old. We're too young. We're too old to live the dream, but too young to leave our hopes behind us. I won't grow old. I won't give up or something.
Mm.
I'm not gonna. I'm not going to. I can't believe I've forgotten this. Honestly, it's not that long since I wrote it. But the key idea is that I'm not just gonna let the end, the sunset come towards me. I'm gonna run towards the sunset. I'm gonna chase that sunlight as long as I can, you know, and we are not too old to leave our hopes behind us. We're gonna go for it. That's what the song is about, even if I can't remember the lyrics. Just a bit sad really. I was only singing it a few days ago. Um There we go. Looking forward to that one. That's quite
Yeah.
upbeat. That's an up-tempo
Well,
one.
what is the best piece of advice another musician ever gave you?
Or is to just keep going. I mean, just don't give up and just keep on writing and just keep it's several bits of advice that are all intertwined. It's keep writing, um, and keep on putting stuff out there, you know, and actually don't sit on stuff that you don't think is good enough. Just get stuff out there because there is always more music to write, you know? And that's why I look back on some of my past catalogue, and there are a few songs out there that aren't, you know, quite as strong as others. But I've thought, you know what, I've written it. Um, it's fine. It might not be my best work, but actually, why not get it out there? Because frankly, in a few years' time, who's going to remember? You know, it's going to be at the bottom of my catalogue, and it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Um, just so that's the thing. Keep on doing it, and just have faith in yourself. Really. Um, and the other bit of advice that I would give to people is don't listen to the critics, is
Hmm.
because if you have faith in what you're doing, that is the most important bit. If you like what you're doing, somebody else out there is going to like what you're doing. And that's all that matters. You know, not everybody's going to like my stuff. I don't care about that. It's fine. You know, I don't like everybody else's stuff either. So why should everybody like my stuff? It doesn't matter. As long as some people like it and as long as I'm enjoying it, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think people should really fall in love with your music, like Not Falling. If you see you're excellent.
I mean, it depends on where you're at, you know. I mean, if you are trying to do music as a career, it's a very different thing. Now, you know, I'm lucky. You know, I make enough work through. I make enough work. You know, I thankfully have enough money behind me that I can do this. You know, I'm not relying on the music to bring in an income. And that's where it becomes punishing. You know, if you're a young musician and you are trying to make enough money to get yourself through it purely by doing music, you are going to be struggling unless you're incredibly lucky and get a massive record deal. You know, unfortunately, most musicians, even quite well-known musicians these days, they still have to have jobs because, you know, it's an expensive industry and streaming just
Mm.
doesn't pay. You
Yeah,
know, it's not like the days of CDs. So
I
you know, that's
know.
why ticket prices that's why tour ticket prices are so high, and that's why merch is expensive and always out there because that's how people make their money. You know, I don't tour, I don't have merch out there. It's something I should really do. I haven't had time. I should really put some merch out there. But you know, luckily I make enough that I can support my music journey. Um, so I'm, you know, very lucky in that regard. Yeah, but God, if I was that person who was working every hour and making a pittance, yeah, maybe then the advice would be don't. But from a creative point, absolutely do. You know, it's like you with your 4 songs that you've got that you haven't released. What are you
Yeah,
doing? Do them, make them, you know? Just take them to a producer. See, well, yeah, again, we can talk about this off, you know, off air if
yeah,
you like. And
sure.
you know, I
Yeah,
can
there's
tell you how to go through the process because I've been through that process, you know?
when someone listens to a song like Waiting to Ask You or Summer High or your best one, The Way I Fall. What message do you hope listeners take away from your music, especially like Summer Sigh or Ghost in the Rain? Like, what's the message you want them to take away from?
Yeah, do you know, I just want people to emotionally connect, I think. The thing is, because my songs, you know, they're not all the same, they're not all giving the same message. I just want them to have an emotional connection with them. You know, and Summer Sigh is obviously about being relaxed and slightly wistful and melancholic, you know, and it's just if I can inspire some of that emotion in the people who are listening to it, then really the song has done its job, you know.
Hmm.
And obviously I write quite a lot of sad stuff, but I write quite a lot of upbeat stuff too, you know, and I hope that the more kind of upbeat, more uplifting stuff can do the same thing, you know. It's like with Just Hold On that people can take away that message. Yeah, okay, things might be quite dark now, but just hold on because there will be brighter days ahead and you will pull through it, you know. Um, so yeah, each song being different. I'm trying to remember what the other you said. Summer Sigh, Ghost in the Rain. Yeah, Ghost in the Rain was an odd melancholic one, which I was very unspecific in what the lyrics actually meant there, because if you analyze them too carefully, they probably all fall apart, if I'm really perfectly honest. I'm really proud of it as a piece of work, but you know, and it's sort of about loss and grief and holding on to loss. But the lyrics don't 100% make sense, but they're very pretty. Um, so, but if I can get that some of that emotion across and make people feel a bit of that, whether it's the uplift or whether it's the
Hmm.
sadness, that's that's job done.
Definitely. That's great. Yeah. So we're going to look forward to putting linking down in the description as show notes, all your music. Perfect, Julian. Really appreciate the opportunity to interview you. And once again, I'm honored. Okay, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to JACRE, Julian Ransom. And his first episode will be linked at the end of the episode. So you're going to have to watch that. Okay. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Just
Thank you, Chris.
you're very welcome. Wait right there for 1 second. Okay,
Yeah.
everyone. See ya. See you, Julian.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
I've always been too far behind to read the writing on the wall. And if there was some warning signs, I didn't notice them at all. I was kinda high and kinda low, so when she went, I was the last to know. And if I see him incomplete, it's the whole show. took a special kind of fool and missed the darkness in her